Hey y'all, and welcome to The Wannabe Author. I'm Taryn, a writer figuring out how to turn my publishing dream into reality, one chaotic step at a time. This is the place where we talk books, writing struggles, mental health, and everything in between. Whether you're a writer, a reader, or just curious about the process, I am so glad you're here. Let's jump in. Hey y'all, and welcome back to The Wannabe Author. I'm your host, Taryn Christine, and today's episode is a little bit different. If you're new here or have been here for a while, I usually invite authors onto the podcast to talk about their publishing journeys, as I'm hoping that it will become a resource for aspiring authors that are looking to publish, whether it be indie, self-published, or traditional published, that they're able to find their way into the industry. And I know it's helped me a ton hearing all the different ways that authors have found their way through the field and through this industry, but today I've invited a reader influencer to join us. Call it Book Lovers Take the Mic, or you can call it the Reader Rant Room. Just a place for readers to talk about their likes, dislikes, what they love in books, and what they hate. But I've learned on my journey towards publication and writing my own book that listening to readers, especially in that are more in my genre and feel of writing, I've learned a lot hearing their likes and dislikes in books. And I wanted to give a platform to readers where authors can come and listen and find readers that have specific likes in their genre, and hear and kind of learn from what the readers are seeing, what stands out to them, like comp titles and ways to catch their attention. So today I have invited a reader influencer onto the podcast to talk about her love in books. She also is working on her own work in progress, which is so fun, and we get to talk a little bit about that at the end. But as a reader influencer, she also has her own podcast where she talks about books, and I got to learn a lot today regarding comp titles and different things that stand out, things that could be written more about. I just hope it inspires you the way it inspired me, but it was truly a joy to sit and talk with this reader, this guest today. She's so genuine, such a kind soul, and I know you will just love her as much as I do. Thank you all for being here, and I'm so honored to introduce you all to Lydia. Hi, Lydia. How are you?
Hi, Taryn. I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic because I get to talk to you again.
I have been waiting for this day. I thought it was last weekend, and I was so excited. And then I was like, oh, I still have to wait a week.
I'm so sorry. Well, I'm glad you waited a week and that we get to record here now. But for those of you who don't know, I had the opportunity of being on Lydia's podcast, and it just was so much fun. She's awesome. She's an amazing reader, and so I'm so thankful to have her here. But we'll hop into things.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to get to yap together again.
Me too. Me too. Okay, I always love to start out with, what is your current read?
Okay. Apologies in advance because I'm reading 3 books right now.
Oh, that's perfect.
The first one is Out of the Woods by Bonam-Young, which I think you're reading right now too.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I am also reading Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas.
Do you like
Then,
it?
yes, I love it. It's so
Good.
good. This is the first time in the series that I've been like, oh, like I don't want to put this down. And that like feels really exciting because I know it like is
Yes.
only going to go up from here. So, thoroughly
I'm so happy for
enjoying,
you.
love all the different points of view. That's so fun. And then
Yay.
the last one is I'm listening to the novella. It's called And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer, which is a very long title, but it's by Fredrik Backman. And I just am such a fan of his books. And I just actually listened to one of his other novellas yesterday. They're both only like an hour long, maybe, because they're like 60 pages. And I finished it yesterday and I was like, I need to read another one. And my library had this one available, so picked it up, I'm almost done with it, and yeah.
Man, I don't think I've heard of that author, so I'll have to look into him.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I think you have. Have you seen people talk about Beartown?
I don't think so.
Whoa. Oh my goodness. You have to. You have to read his books. He's one of my favorite authors. He's incredible.
Okay. Okay, I'll write that down.
Perfect.
Say his name again.
Fredrik Backman.
Okay. Hey, he's my next one.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. Okay, I'm currently. What am I reading? Oh shoot. Oh yeah. I'm rereading "Consider Me" by Mack. I read it when I first got into books, and I got a thing for Carter Beckett and hockey players, so I had to swoop back into that one. Um, and then "Out of the Woods" by Bonam-Young. I haven't gotten very far into it just because I've been so busy, but so far I like it. I like it all. It's my first of her books, so
Okay.
she's a
Good.
very sweet writer.
She is so sweet, and I love like following her on Instagram. She just seems like the most wholesome human.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel the exact same way. Okay, are you ready to dive in?
I'm so ready.
Yay. Okay. My first question for you, Lydia, is where does your taste in books mainly reside? Like genre, feel, example authors?
Yeah. Also, if I look down, it's because I like wrote down notes from your
Oh, you're
questions you sent
fine.
me. Um, so my go-to is historical fiction. I love learning by reading, and I also love to travel, and I feel like historical fiction typically allows me to do both. Because most of the time, at least the historical fiction that I've read takes place outside of like anywhere I've been before, or at least anywhere that I've lived. And so
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm kind of traveling and then like learning as I read. So that's one of my favorites, like for genre. But overall, I love character-based books. Of course, plot-based books are good too, but I love when it's focused on a character. I don't need like anything to be happening in a book to enjoy it. Um, I like when they take place over multiple years, which tends to happen in historical fiction. I just feel like you get to know the characters so well that way. And I love when they have like really big feelings, whether that's like, I don't know, I think it could be sadness or it could be anger or joy or longing, whatever it is, like when it has that like depth of emotion, I love. And then some of my favorite authors, Chris and Hannah, love her. And
Yes.
then Fredrik Backman, like I mentioned earlier, and then for romance, Emily Henry. But I'm a big proponent of Emily Henry's books not just being romance books. I think that they're so much more than that. So that's a little bit of what I kind of like to read.
I love it. I love it. And I can get behind that statement for Emily Henry. Absolutely. She's got a lot going on behind the scenes of those characters. So, I love that point made.
Yes.
I've only read one Kristen Hanna book, and it was The Nightingale. And now I'm just scared to start up another one.
That is really valid.
It was
I
one of the most beautiful books ever, but wowza.
It is so beautiful. And what I like to tell people, because I think I've read 7 of her books now. I like really read a bunch of them last year, but of the 7 or something that I've read, I think 4 of them have been 5 stars. And if I were to rank those 4, The Nightingale is at the bottom of the list. And so even though it's 5 stars, yeah, I know. And so I feel like obviously The Nightingale is so good and like it's hyped for a reason, but I just
Mm-hmm.
think that some of her other books are even better. And so, yeah, it's valid to be scared because her books hurt. But I think that you definitely have some other good ones lined up for you.
Okay. Okay, dang. Okay, fine, you convinced me. I'll get back on there.
Yeah, they're so good.
Ooh, dang. I'm excited now. Okay. What's a book you read recently that completely lived up to the hype?
Um, oh, Babel by R.F. Kuang.
Hmm.
I was so intimidated by it. One, because it's a big book, and two, because I felt like most of the people that were reading it and loving it are so much smarter than me. And I was like,
Sorry, did you see my balloons?
oh,
Oh,
it did it
oh.
again. I think it's because you're holding them almost in like a heart.
I just love you so much.
Ah,
I'm
the
so
feeling
sorry
is
for interrupting
mutual.
you.
It's okay. Um, oh, I feel like most of the people that I like would see reading it are people who tend to read books that are a lot smarter than what I read. And so I was very intimidated to get into it, but I started reading it. There were definitely some words that I was like, I've never heard that word in my whole life. Or like a sentence. Sometimes I'd read one out loud to my mom to be like, Mom, listen to what I'm reading because this sentence is, I would never put these words together. Like, this is crazy. But like the meaning behind it, the story that it told, and everything was so good. And it's definitely hyped accurately.
Okay. I've I've heard a lot of great things about it and I've been wanting to read it, but my fear was the exact same where I was like, I feel it's gonna go right over my head, but I do need to give it a try.
Are you like into audiobooks at all, or do you mostly just read with your eyeballs?
You see, I have a really hard time with attention span. So
Mhm.
audiobooks are the best way for me to go about reading.
Oh, good. Well, what I recommend is that you read the physical book and you listen to the audiobook at the same time. I did that
Ooh.
for like a good bit of the book, and I felt like one, I was just so much more immersed in it, but also two, it just like helped me stay on track where I feel like with books that have like a bigger vocabulary than I use, it can be a little bit harder to like get distracted or kind of like zone out. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my recommendation.
Okay. I will definitely keep that in mind. I think I will need to be doing that. Now, my next question is, what's a book you went into expecting to love but ended up disappointed by?
This is going to be unpopular, but I recently read The Favorites by Lane Fargo. I'm sure you've
Okay.
seen it around. I feel
Yeah.
like Bookstagram was shouting from the rooftops about it. And I didn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily dislike it. I still thought it was a good book. I liked the story a lot. But people were comparing it to Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And that's like probably my favorite book of all time. And so I went
Oh.
into it with like the highest expectations, and it just didn't really live up to the hype that I had in my own head.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. I'm curious if people hadn't like made that comparison, if I would have like felt the same way, but I feel like I don't know. I think I will say this. The chapters were so short, which I tend to love, but in this case, I felt like it actually kind of like detracted from the story a little bit because you'd finally like be getting into a chapter, into like a scene, and then it would stop because it would go to the next one. And I felt like that kind
Oh.
of like removed me from it a little bit. But yeah, that's the only thing I can really think of that like actually made me not like it as much as I thought it would or thought I
No, that
would.
makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So going along the lines of a book not living up to the hype or, what can deter you from liking it, what's your ultimate book ick? Something that immediately just turns you off while reading.
Honestly, I like sat and pondered this for a while. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that's like, if it has this, like it's gonna be a no. There's for sure things like there's no way that I like never have read a book and been like, ugh. But I can't really think of anything just off the top of my head.
I get that. I get that. Is it like really hard for you to DNF a book, or are you pretty good about reading all the way through?
I wish that I DNF'd more. But to me, I'm like, a majority of the books that I read are ones that I've heard other people talk about. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I'm reading it and I'm not liking it, I'm like, well, people like this though. Like, I need to know why. And so I have a hard time DNFing because I just like want to know. I also just want to know how the story ends and everything. So it's hard for me to DNF.
I understand that. I understand. I
Yeah.
think I'm the same way. And I think it's a little bit because I know you're like writing, working on things. I think it's that little author mindset that it's like, I gotta know why people are into this, you know?
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Because when I think of Ultimate Bookix, I'm like, I don't think I have one, but there have been some. So
Yeah,
I
for
was just
sure.
relating with you. Okay. Are there any tropes or themes you never get tired of?
If we're talking about like a romance trope, my favorite is friends to lovers. Love it. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
I think it's so underrated. People talk about how friends to lovers is like predictable or it's too much like real life. And I'm like, no, but that's like what I like. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
the most likely thing to happen, I feel like most of the time. And so I love that like realistic aspect to it. But overall, I love found family in any genre. And then
Yes.
a theme, or I guess like maybe not a theme, but I love flawed characters. I, like I said, Daisy Jones and the Six. Have you read it?
Mm-mm.
No? Ugh, I'm a Billy Dunn apologist till the day I die. He's like, I feel like he's kind of divisive. Like most people are like, you're a terrible human, and I'm like, I love him.
Yeah.
He he makes mistakes, but he like also works to fix them. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just think it keeps it interesting and again, like is very realistic because people are flawed. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Have you read Magnolia Parks at all by Jessa Hastings?
Yep.
Are you a fan?
Oh yeah, BJ Valentine apologist too. Love him.
Okay. You and me both. I love it. Okay. How do you decide what to read next? Are you a mood reader or do you have a system like a TBR?
I used to have like a reading goal, a number of books I wanted to read during the year, and then I'd also make like a seasonal TBR. So like in the spring, I want to read these books. But it would rarely happen. Well, I met my like reading goal, but the TBRs wouldn't happen. And not that I like felt constrained to them, but I just was like, why would I do this if I'm not actually reading them? Like, what's the point? So
Yeah.
this year is mood reading year. I didn't make a reading goal for myself. The only thing that I did, which I did last year, is I made a list of 25 books that I want to read in 2025 because last
Mm.
year I made a list of 24 to read in 2024 and I succeeded with it. And this year I made it even more like specific. Last year I kind of included some new releases throughout the year, some that just like had caught my eye. But this year,
Mm-hmm.
I specifically picked ones that I've either owned for a long time and haven't read yet, or just ones that I keep being like, I need to read this, I need to read this, but haven't. And so I'm excited to hopefully finish that list as well because I think that there's some good picks on there.
Absolutely. That's such a smart way to do it and how fun. I love
It's
that.
so
I think I need
fun.
to do
Yeah. Yeah, you should.
because
It's not too late.
yeah, no. We're barely into the year.
Really, yeah.
Because I'm a mood reader, but I like to, because I have to have a list and be like, I need to read these for this. And so it's smart. That's a very smart, fun way
Yeah.
to go about it.
It doesn't
Love
make me
that.
feel like confined to only those books because
Yeah.
I'll read more than 25 this year. And so it's just like ones that I can pick up when I feel like it and then hopefully
Mm-hmm.
finish all of them.
Yeah, I love that so much. That's very, very smart. Okay. How do you feel about the trend of books being written with social media virality in mind?
That's a good question. And honestly, I think it makes sense, especially with just how books are right now and how social media is right now. I feel like Book Talk and BookTube and that kind of thing, but especially Book Talk, kind of made like reading cool again. Like, I feel like a lot of people have gotten into reading simply because it's been so hyped up. And like,
Mm-hmm.
you could probably even name like 10 books off the top of your head now that helped people do that, like Colleen Hoover books or Fourth Wing or ACOTAR or all these different books. And I think that it makes sense that people would write with the intention to reach that kind of audience because they're thinking like, oh, this is going to help me like be successful or like reach people. I don't think that it necessarily is for everyone. Like I think of certain authors like Fredrik Backman or Kristen Hanna, which I mentioned earlier. Both of them aren't writing books necessarily that are like part of TikTok trends and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. They still end up in there because they're both popular writers and people will talk about their books. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think it kind of depends on the genre and the type of book that people are trying to write. Um, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I think also, too, it kind of goes with the argument because some people say, like, tropes or specific things, like fantasy, for instance, is kind of getting washed out because people are so focused on these certain tropes and these certain aspects of fantasy. And,
Mm.
me, I'm like, if I love something, please give it to me over and over and over again. Like, so I
Hmm.
don't mind writing towards that, but I also see kind of that argument. I don't know.
Yeah,
Just
I
interesting.
think there's pros and cons, but I think ultimately it's up to the author to determine if that's like their intended audience.
Yep. That's a good point.
Thank you.
Okay. What makes a book unputdownable for you?
Two things. One, if the writing is beautiful, like Magnolia Parks, her writing is insane. Like
It is.
truly so beautiful. Um, and then the other would be if it's a story that I've never like read before. I think, like you were saying, like if it's something that you love, like you want to read it over and over. And I think that that's
Mm-hmm.
definitely true. Like it's so comforting to read a romance book because you know how it's going to turn out.
Yes.
Um, but also equally, when you don't want to put a book down, it's at least for me, it's because I'm like, I've never heard this story before. This is so unique, and I want to see what's going to happen because I have no idea.
Mm-hmm. Very good points. When you recommend a book to your audience, what makes you confident people will love it?
I think probably for this, it's mostly in how I would compare it to books that are popular. So, like, for example, one of the Fredrik Backman books, again, I talk about him all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my favorite of his that he's written is A Man Called Uva,
Okay.
and I adore that book. It's about this grumpy old man, and he's like angry at the world, but there's found family, and like he's actually just has a lot going on in the background, and like you come to know him and the other characters so well. And I just read a different book last month called The Borrowed Life of Frederick Fife by Anna Johnston. And it's kind of a similar idea. It's just this old man kind of grumpy. And I think if I were to compare those two, that's a good way for like people to see like, oh, I should read that one because I liked A Man Called Uva or that kind of thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that comparisons, that's like one of the best ways that you can get me too. Like, oh, you like this book, then you'll like this one too. So,
Those are good points, especially for since this podcast is for authors that are aspiring and wanting to get people to see their books more. It's a good argument for why we come up with comp titles, saying
yeah,
like, "Hey, if you like this book, then you'll like my book." So that was good.
definitely. Thanks.
Are there any niche or underrated genres, topics you wish more authors would explore?
I thought of two. The first one, which isn't really niche, um, but it's the best, is just female friendship. Whenever that is in a book, I love it because
Mm-hmm.
I think that my female friendships are some of the most important relationships that I have. And so I love when I get to see those represented in books. But another one that I think this one actually is kind of niche, um, at least I haven't read a bunch of it, is brother-sister relationships. I think it's common to see like sister relationships, but I've only read a handful of books that like focus. Actually, I think I can only think of one book that like fully is a focus on a brother-sister relationship. And I'm really close with my own brother. And so reading that, I was like, this is really special. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, any brother, sister books out there, recommend them to me.
I got you. I'll find something. I'll find something because I'm a sister of three little brothers, so I completely feel
Oh,
that. I didn't even think
cute.
about the fact I haven't read very many with brother sister relationship, but that's such a good point. Hmm.
Yeah, I read last year The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. And first of all, I listened to the audiobook and it's narrated by Tom Hanks, which is so cute.
Okay.
And I love him because my favorite movie is You've Got Mail. So it's very
Oh.
nostalgic. Um, but it's from the point of view of the brother. So obviously not my own perspective, but like seeing his care for his sister and like
Mm-hmm.
reflecting on how they grew up and everything, I was like, this is so cool.
Okay. I love that. I need to watch that again.
So good.
What's your take on book length? Do you prefer short and punchy or long and immersive?
I have big book fear, I'll admit it. But I will also admit that I can't think of any books that are like longer than 500 pages that I've disliked. Because I
Yeah.
think that when you have a big book, the author is able to dive into so much more and get so much of the story out there, like even more than 400 pages or something. And so every time I read a book that's over 500 pages, I'm very happy with it, but I always go into it a little afraid.
I completely understand that. I'm trying to think of what it was that I was looking at it and I was like, oh my gosh. I can't remember. Probably Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I was looking at him. But those are usually the ones I have to audiobook, so I can't see how long it
Mm,
is.
sure. Although then you like see the audiobook and it's like 24 hours long and you're like, "Oh my goodness."
Well, at work, at my full-time job that I have, it's very mindless work, so I listen to audiobooks all day. So when I see a long audiobook, I'm like, yes.
Nice. Yeah, that works well.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. How much does a book cover influence whether you pick it up?
More than it should. Truly, actually, okay, I'm gonna say this. I'm not gonna say the title of the book, but a few years ago, I read probably my least favorite book that I've ever read. and I picked it up solely because of the cover. I thought it was so pretty. It was so cute. It was like this pale yellow, and yellow is my favorite color. And I was like, this is adorable.
Mm-hmm.
The content did not match the cover. Let's
Oh,
just,
that's so
yeah,
unfortunate.
I know. So, but also there are plenty of books that are perfectly lovely that have covers that I don't like. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Very curious as to what that book is. You'll have to tell me off camera or something. Okay. Um, how do you feel about cliffhangers versus neatly wrapped up endings?
I love an inconspicuous ending. I love, I love
Yes.
it. And it all started with The Giver by Lois Lowry, which I read in
Okay.
middle school. One of my favorite books of all time. And have you read it?
I have, but it's been a very, very
Been a
long time.
while.
I'll
That,
reread.
I always say this, but that was the first book that I remember reading and being like, this is how reading can make you feel. And like, I feel like I've been chasing that feeling ever since. And the way that it ends is very much so like it could go either way.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that that makes for like really good thought-provoking conversations and just thought overall. So I
Yeah.
love when a book ends and you're not really sure what happens.
Me too. It is my favorite. I love it so much. My mom was in town and she and I actually got into like this conversation where I was saying I love endings where you're just sitting there like, and she said she hates it. Absolutely hates it.
No,
I
I
was like,
think my mom would say the same thing. I love
yeah,
it though, but I also don't like when people are like, it ends in a cliffhanger, and you're like, what do you mean? Like, I don't want to know that. I want to be surprised. But
agreed.
yeah,
Agreed. Okay. You and I have such similar tastes. I love it.
I know. Well, that's the other thing, which maybe if, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't want to know anything before I read a book, which sounds stupid and sometimes is to my detriment. Like this book
Hmm.
that I mentioned that I didn't like very much, I probably didn't read what it was about. And maybe if I had, I wouldn't have read it.
Yeah.
But I saw the cover and I was like, that's pretty, I'm reading it. So I don't know. Kind of ruin things for myself sometimes.
No, I don't like knowing what is in a book. I don't even read the synopsis on the back. Because most of the time they tell the whole
Oh,
story on the back anyway, so it's like why would I read
yes,
that?
exactly.
Great minds think alike. Okay. If you could give one piece of advice to authors hoping to hook readers like you, what would it be?
I think a good combo of like scene building and dialogue. Sometimes I find when there's not a lot of dialogue, like in a chapter, or when the paragraphs are really heavy, it kind of loses me a little bit. And so a good combination of that as well as good dialogue.
Love that. I'm the exact same way. If it's a thick paragraph, I'm like, okay, where's the next line of dialogue? Just gonna.
Yeah, I think that your eye just like naturally is drawn to like the next point in conversation. And
Hmm.
so sometimes when there's not a lot of dialogue or there's a lot of thought between each like sentence that's spoken, I'm like, I accidentally skip and I'm like, okay, you have to go back. So,
Yeah. Yep. I think that also might kind of go along the lines of I've heard readers put it this way, where they're not where the author isn't letting the reader do their own thought process and is kind of just laying it out for them
sure.
word for word.
Yeah,
Uh,
I could
I
see
could be
that.
with it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So, this is going to be a little different compared to other like reader episodes I wanted to do, but I
Yeah,
know that you're working on a little work in progress, and I'd love to ask you a couple questions about that if that's all right.
of course.
Yay! Okay, can you tell us a little bit about your work in progress and what inspired it?
Yes. So, my current work in progress is my debut novel. It's about a girl named Molly, and it's the summer before she gets married to her high school sweetheart. And she is about to go on her last little trip before she gets married with her three best friends. And she's very type A, very organized, has everything planned out perfectly all the time. And pretty much everything just goes wrong. And so it's kind of the main goal is the focus on female friendship, like I mentioned earlier, how much I love that. But
Mhm.
also, it's Molly learning that when things don't go well or don't go correctly, it's okay, and kind of diving into some of the things from her past that made her feel like that's not true. So, yeah, what inspired it? I would say if I'm going to compare it to a book, I would say I love the female friendships in Happy Place by Emily Henry. I know that Happy Place is a romance, and
Mhm.
my book is not a romance. It has romance in it, but that's not the main focus. But the
Mhm.
female friendship part of Happy Place was my favorite part of all of it. And also just the friendships in my own life. I think, as I said earlier, they're so important to me, and I want to write a book that emphasizes that.
I love that. And just knowing your tastes in books and how what you focus on and stuff, I already know. Me and many others are just going to eat that all up, and I'm so excited.
Thank you.
Okay, well, speaking of reader taste and how it can influence, how does your taste as a reader influence how you write?
I think, that's a good question. I know you sent that to me, but I didn't really think about it. How does my taste influence how I write? I think that there's a lot of possibility for getting to know the characters. Even though it's not set over a long period of time, there are like flashbacks and different moments that Molly and her friends talk about throughout the story that allow you to get to know them all individually, but especially Molly. And
Mhm.
as I mentioned earlier, I love when you get to know characters over a long period of time. And so yeah, getting to know it's very character based, and so I think that that definitely impacts my story.
Yes. Okay, I love that. I love character based, like character driven books. I think they're so eye opening sometimes. So,
Yeah, and I
love
think
that.
that those are the ones that tend to be the most relatable, and
Hmm.
I think the books that I like the most end up being ones that I personally relate to. So that probably has a big influence on it too.
Yes. Love, love. Okay, my last question. Is there a trope or theme in your book that you wish you saw more of in published books?
I think I that's a good question too. As I mentioned, Molly is going to marry her high school sweetheart,
Hmm.
and I think that my story will focus on not just I okay, this feels I don't know how to explain this well, but I think a lot of the time, especially in romance, it's almost like once the main character meets their significant other, then it's like, oh, all the problems are fixed. And in this case, Molly like has had Jackson since high school. They've like been together this long. And so it's not like him that's going to fix the things that like she needs to do the work to fix. And so
Hmm.
I think that that's something that I enjoy reading about in books, but sometimes I don't always find. I feel like, yeah, I don't know, just the character doing their own work to resolve the issues that they have to resolve.
Absolutely. That's such an important, important arc or detail that I think a lot of people do shoot for, but it doesn't hit as hard. So I think that's a very, very good point. Love.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to read your book and see it on shelves one day. You're incredible, and I'm so, so happy that you joined me today. Thank you, Lydia.
Yeah,
And
thank you for having me. This is so fun.
of course, as of course, always looking forward to like what you create, but especially loving your podcast.
Thank
If
you.
y'all are looking for just a comfort podcast to listen to, I love listening to Lydia, okay, this sounds so creepy. But you just have a very comforting, like, beautiful voice that just, I'm like,
That's so nice. And I feel I've had people say this to me before, and it's so nice, but I'm like, I like listen to myself speak and I'm like, oh my goodness, like, your voice is so annoying. Which I think that
What?
most people probably think that about themselves, but I'm like, Lydia, please, please stop talking.
Well, just know you have a beautiful voice. I think it's a perfect podcasting comfort creator voice. Like, I love listening to you talk about books. You're one of my favorites. So
Thank
don't ever
you.
beat yourself up about your voice. You sound great.
Thank you.
Of course. But I love to sit and keep chatting with you, but we'll go ahead and close out with the rest of the listeners. But thank y'all for being here.
Yeah.
It's been fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. We'll see y'all next Thursday. Bye.
Bye.